Chris, how you feeling?
I'm getting there. I'm actually in a lot of pain, but what can you do?
You don't look like,
I'll be there on Monday for sure.
well, don't be a hero.
Yeah.
Surgeries are nothing to mess around with.
Yeah.
You don't want to get an infection on top of it.
Judge, I just sent my client the link, so hopefully he should be on soon.
Okay. Thanks, Jill. Sorry about all this, but our only way to comply with the Constitution with respect to his First Amendment right to open proceeding is to do it on this platform. So darn that Constitution.
I am just going to give him a call real quick.
Sure.
He successfully made it in the other Zoom session.
Oh,
So
no, I got him. He just showed up on my.
Oh, he did? Okay.
So I'll just admit him.
It's his first time on this platform. So
Okay. He's connecting now. And then are you folks all set?
Yep.
Okay. And Barb, you can hear okay? And Mr. Caparellian, you can hear okay, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, Your Honor.
Then if you'd make a record, Mr. Corbin.
This is 19 CF 921, 20 CF 545, 19 CM 1963, and accompanying traffics. People of the state of Illinois versus Michael Caprellian. People by Christopher Corbin by way of Zoom conferencing. Defendant Michael Caprellian present with his attorney Jillian Castle, also by way of Zoom conferencing. The matter comes before the court on defendant's emergency motion to travel.
that is correct, Judge.
Just to be sure, 19 CF 921 is resolved and pending, I believe. There's a disposition on that case.
It's an
No,
active.
Judge.
It's active, okay. And then there's a new felony that's still in 110, is that correct?
Yes, Judge. It was actually up this very past Friday. We had intended to waive preliminary hearing on that court date to get all the cases before Your Honor. However, if you'll recall, that court call was canceled based on the protests in Waukegan. So that has a future court date.
So, well, why can't we just do that right now? Can we do that
We
right
can
now?
do that right now.
Mr. Caparellian, you do have the right, am I pronouncing that correctly? I'm sorry.
Caprillion.
Caparellian, I beg your pardon. You do have a right to a preliminary hearing, which is an evidentiary hearing where the state would have to produce a witness who would testify under oath, subject to cross-examination, to provide the court evidence that there is probable cause to believe that you committed this offense. You do also have the right to waive that hearing and ask that it be bound over to the trial court for arraignments and pretrial. So do you understand what a preliminary hearing is, sir?
I do.
Is it your desire to waive your right to that hearing and to ask that this be set in front of me at a future date for arraignment and pretrial with your pending cases?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, then I'll accept your waiver of a pretrial, Mr. Corbin. I do need a charging instrument on that. Given the fact that it's 2:45 on a Friday, this is comes before the court on a emergency notice of motion from the defense. I appreciate that you were unaware that we were going to have a waiver this afternoon, Mr. Corbin. So if you can get me a charging instrument on these charges by the end of the day on Monday, I'd appreciate it.
Understood.
And any objection to that, Ms. Castle?
No, Judge.
All right, do you want to be heard on your motion, Jill?
Yes, Judge. I spoke to my client. I received a voicemail from my client this morning and his mother indicating that her cousin, he refers to him as his cousin as well, has passed away. They reside in Kentucky. It is their intention to drive down there as soon as possible, which would be today. And they would be back in Illinois in Lake County by next Friday, which are the parameters that I've included in my proposed motion should the court grant him access to leave the state of Illinois. I'd ask the court to consider the fact that he's been fitted with the SCRAM device, I believe for the past 5 or 6 months. So he is currently subject to SCRAM as well. And I would ask the court to consider that in allowing him to leave the state. And to the extent that he didn't just up and leave, he's going about this the right way. He contacted his attorney to try to get the court's permission as well.
Have there been any pretrial bond memorandums indicating that this gentleman has not complied with the terms and conditions of his pretrial?
Judge, the public defender was appointed on this case a little bit later on. I went through my files before the hearing today. I don't want to misrepresent anything that might be in the court file. The only pretrial memo I have is from October indicating that he was not fitted with the SCRAM device, and he has since been fitted with the SCRAM device. I believe there was in that memorandum, there's an issue with his address as well, but I believe that's been addressed previously.
Anything else, Ms. Castle?
Not at this time, Judge.
Mr. Corbin?
Judge, we don't have a location. We don't have a name. I fail to see how a funeral or services would require a week. Kentucky is not that far away. Funeral services do not take that long. But getting to the violations while he was on bond, those are numerous, Your Honor. Even before being on bond, well, after he was on bond for the 19 CF, he subsequently picked up a violated bond by picking up a domestic battery, who the victim has not been properly notified pursuant to the Illinois Victims' Rights Law, which would require notice to her for his proposed change to his bond conditions. Anyways, while he was in custody, he was contacting her himself and through his mother, attempting to have her change her testimony. His phone privileges were revoked as a result of that. Eventually, he was able to post bond. He refused to get his SCRAM device. Eventually, he was placed into custody because of that refusal. Ultimately, he did comply after being released. And then he picked up numerous police contacts, as I was notified by Annie Solberg, Solberg. Those took place in February. And then he culminated by picking up the offense in March, which was a new drug offense.
So I want to stop you. The police contacts, is Annie Solberg a police officer?
She is the pretrial bond services officer. She notified me of the police contacts in February. She said that there were no arrests, but that he had been trespassed from several addresses.
Okay, so you're objecting?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Castle, I guess I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage since you all have had this case for a while, and I've had it now for about 3 minutes. What are the specifics of the funeral?
So they do not know the exact funeral arrangements yet. They expect it to be on Monday. I don't believe that, because he had just passed away this morning, I don't believe that there are actual arrangements now. However, I would ask the court to order him, if the court were inclined to let him travel, for him to update his pretrial officer, Ms. Solberg, immediately when he has that information, and we can always modify his travel restrictions based on the parameters of that funeral.
Well, if that's what makes me uncomfortable about that, that's the classic cart before the horse. I mean, you're asking me to let this gentleman go, you know, a couple states away to a funeral, but you don't know when it is, you don't know where it is, and you can't give me details, which makes me a little uncomfortable. And Mr. I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher your name again.
Caprillion.
Caprillion. It's not that I, look, this is actually in an odd way, this is designed to protect you. When these orders are entered, it's designed to, it's a bright line for you what you can and cannot do, but I have no details to advise you of right now. Where in Kentucky?
It'll be in Hopkins County, Kentucky.
All right, so you got to tell me where Hopkins County is. I know Kentucky a little
That's
bit.
in Western Kentucky, by Paducah.
So it's by Paducah, by Murray State down that way?
Yeah.
Okay. So what is that, about 5 hours?
You could get there in probably 5, but if you take another way, it would take 8 hours. You could probably do it in 5 to 8 hours, depending on what route you take. If you're going to take 65 or if you're going to take 55, whatever highway and
Yeah,
then if you take the
57
cut.
to 65 are the two ways down there, so.
But yeah, it's about 5 hours to Kentucky border. And so it's just right over the border.
So, and I'm sorry, who, it was your cousin that passed away?
Yeah, it was very close cousin of my mom's, who she grew up with, like a brother of hers, and they were in close contact their entire life. And on the phone, last time I talked with my cousin Jerry, I was with my mom. She was on speakerphone in the car with him, and this was just last week. I had no idea. I would have said, you know, so many more things. You never know that he was 57 years old, and he had 2 kids and I think 6 grandkids. And
Yeah, I want you to understand what I'm saying is I'm at this point, I'm not granting your emotion, nor am I denying it, because I don't want to give you, I don't want to tell you you can't go to this, but I'm not going to let you go anywhere without more specifics. So, you know, we live in a weird virtual world right now. And Ms. Castleheim and Mr. Corbin, you know, having spent the last 10 years in treatment court, I'm used to being on my phone all weekend. If you all can get me details about the funeral, if by the way, if the funeral is Monday, I'll tell you this, I'm not comfortable letting somebody on bond for 2 pending felonies and a domestic violence charge, you know, go away for a week. I'm not inclined to do that. But if you can give me details about when the funeral is, I would consider crafting an order that allows this gentleman to go to that funeral. But I need more specifics. I'm not going to enter sort of a blanket, go have a, you know, go with your family sort of order. And it's at a minimum, it's going to include dropping at CVCC when he returns
Absolutely.
from this exercise. So, you know, I guess the best thing to do is stay in contact with your lawyer, sir. If you have an order that you will, where you can craft some specifics. If the funeral is Monday, no reason he shouldn't be back by Tuesday or Wednesday.
Absolutely, Judge.
That'll be over the objection of the state's attorney.
And Your Honor, could I ask 2 questions? Is this a
Sure.
third? Is this a third cousin? That would be my first question. Number 2, since it is a family member, are we sure that the victim of the domestic, who is not notified about today, is not going to be going to that funeral as well, April Caprillion?
I don't know.
Okay.
Is that the case, Ms. Castle? Is that young lady going?
I have no information as to whether or not April is in attendance.
If I was going to go down there, I would be leaving with.
Stop. And here's, Michael, understand why I'm cutting you off. I don't want you to say anything that in any way can be construed by the state as disadvantageous to your case. And while it may become, you may be coming at this from a helpful place. I've had plenty of people over the years, my clients, people I prosecuted when I was a prosecutor, people I defended when I was a defense attorney, people in front of me as a judge, say something in open court that completely buried themselves. So I don't want you to say anything. Let Ms. Castle talk for on your behalf. Jill, go ahead.
Judge, I will be in contact with my client over the weekend and hopefully get more specifics about the exact date of the funeral. Is this court willing to entertain this motion over the weekend on an emergency basis?
Welcome to my world, Jill. Yeah, I'll, if you get me specifics, I'll entertain it, but couple things. Any communication with this court has to include Mr. Corbin.
Absolutely.
And should probably include your client, because otherwise it's an ex parte communication. So any electronic communication should have everybody involved on it.
I will CC everybody.
And that way we can come to some sort of hopeful arrangement where Michael will be permitted to attend this. But before, so just because I'm not going to get a chance, it's likely I'm not going to get a chance to visit with you. Understand something. You've already dug yourself a hole. You've got pending cases. You've got a misdemeanor and 2 felonies. You violate any order that I enter. You're not only putting your liberty at risk, you're making your lawyer's job enormously difficult. So if I enter an order here that permits you to leave the state, you violate that order, there's going to be a consequence. You need to understand that. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Don't put yourself, don't put your lawyer in that position. Don't put me in that position. I'm a reasonable guy, but if I give somebody a chance and they burn me, it usually doesn't end well for you. So be thoughtful about how you handle this. Don't put yourself in a position where you're in my courtroom live and in person and I'm remanding you. Don't do that. All right, so Jill, I'll rely on you to reach out to the court when ready. Mr. Corbin, I want you to understand that the record will absolutely reflect that this is over your objection.
Okay.
And it will be, and any order that I enter must be narrowly tailored and very specific as to what this gentleman will be permitted to do. No drugs, no alcohol, no contact with the young lady that is in the complaining witness in the domestic violence case. No contact of any kind, in person, third person, email, electronic, carrier pigeon, I don't care. You're not going to have anything to do with that young lady, period. And that he has to drop upon his return to court. So no drugs, no alcohol. That scram device stays on. So be sure you understand all of that, okay?
Thank you, Judge. In my proposed order, which I will tailor a bit further once I have more information, obviously, I had put in within 24 hours of his return to Illinois, he shall report to pretrial bond services to receive a drug test. Is that language within 24 hours specifically appropriate?
Yeah, I would be more comfortable with 12 hours.
I can put 12.
Yeah, 12 hours. He reports and drops. I'm going to set this case on Monday, the 15th, and then that way we'll have an opportunity to spread of record what was done.
Okay, thank you, Judge. Is that at 9 or 1:30?
You might as well set it at 9. I'm here all day. Mr. Corbin, you look uncomfortable.
Judge, I would just ask, I believe that this is before the court on an oral motion. I would ask for a written memorialization of the motion, just so I have an idea of who this person is, so I can do some research, because I've been burned by Mr. Caprellian many times, and I just want to make sure that we have as much information that can be verified as possible.
Yeah, I you know, this is, Mr. Caprellian, this is going to sound ice cold, and I don't mean it to. I've been burned by people telling me they're going to a funeral, only to find out that there was a fictitious relative and nobody passed away. So, Ms. Castle, at a minimum, you're going to have to get an obit or something to me.
And that's exactly what I'm looking for as well.
Okay. So, because I'm not inclined to enter an order unless I have some proof that this, and that sounds really icy, and I don't mean it to be. But understand, Mr. Capralian, our business is one where sometimes people are less than truthful with us. So that's where this is coming from.
And Judge, when I spoke to him this morning, I had previously told him and explained to him that the court and the state, for that matter, are both going to want to see an obituary. So he is aware of that already.
Okay. All right, very well. All right, then the request is entered and continued until further correspondence. I do intend on printing whatever email exchange we have and making that part of the record to be sure that there's full disclosure about what went on.
Thank you, Judge.
So,
And in the meantime, before I get this information, I will provide Mr. Corbin and the court with a written motion for bond modification.
and Mr. Corbin, again, because I don't want you to walk away from here thinking you weren't heard, I hear you, and this is being done over your objection.
Thank you, Judge.
All right, guys.
Thank you,
Have a
Judge.
good
I
one.
appreciate it.
All right,
Thank
you.
sorry for your loss, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor.